What I really like about Barack Obama is that I feel like I can trust him, and I haven't felt that way about government or politics in a long time.
He has a new attitude, and Obama represents that change and the new attitude.
Obama could be someone who honors the feminine values of caring for all.
I think he has a very good understanding of what's just and what's not, of what's right and what's wrong. And I just believe that he has so much integrity that as a woman, as a Mexican woman, I have all the faith in the world in him.
He's different.
Yeah,
he's just different, just plain and simple. He's bold, he's different. He is not reading from the same script.
I want to investigate. How'd you do, sweetie? You all right? At each and every juncture in American history, change has not come from the top. It has come because millions of voices have joined together and decided that change was going to happen. That's why I'm sure that there was a woman somewhere who looked across the kitchen table at her husband and said, you know, I'm smarter than him, and I don't know why he has the right to vote and I don't. And she went to talk to her friends and started stirring things up and mobilizing and marching until women were full partners in the process of American renewal. That's how we got civil rights passed. That is how, at each and every juncture, we have transformed this country. How are you?
I think what women sense in Barack Obama is a real sensitivity. It's not a kind of pandering, but that he understands those issues in his gut and he's going to address them.
With Obama, there's this feeling that, you know, here is someone who is a father. He's a real father. He's got his children. He thinks about his children. And through his children, he's thinking about all the children. This is rare.
Women will often prioritize issues differently. Women are interested in not sending their children off to war. Not that men aren't, but I think they're more likely to look at personal consequences of what war is about.
Well, my grandson got into the Marines not in the best way, and I don't think he thought he was going to go to Iraq because he went in as a non-combatant, but he got sent. Oh, that was one of the worst days of my life, I think. My son was already over there at that time, and now my grandson, and I will not forget that day because, you know, the tears kept coming. And I kept looking at his picture and thinking, he's a baby, you know. He's alive today. But every Sunday, if I watch George Stephanopoulos, he always does in memoriam, and it's always the soldiers. And I can't help but cry every time because those are somebody else's grandchildren. And somebody else's, those are someone else's children. So it's really a good reason for us to get out of this war.
Most people in this room can imagine what it must be like for that woman who pulled me into a fierce embrace in Iowa, tears streaming down her face, explaining that her son had died in Iraq and asking me whether he had died for a mistake. You know what that must feel like. And it's that sense of connection, the belief that every child in this country matters because you know what it's been like to hold your own child. And the notion that somehow that child would not be loved and nurtured and cherished and cared for and given every opportunity in the world makes you angry. The notion that you would lose your child because of a senseless, ill-conceived ideological war makes you angry.
Please bring my grandson home.
Is he still there?
He's going to go back.
Where's he going to go back?
To Iraq. Yeah. So I really support you.
Well, we're praying for you. All right, we're going to get this done.
Ever since I gave birth to my son, which is 2.5 years ago, I have felt this like my heart ripped open to the world, to the inequalities of the world, because I want to create a world that's safe for my son and has harmony rather than sadness and poverty and grief and fear. You know, fear is the biggest. I don't want my child to be raised in a world of fear.
One of the things we said when we entered this race is that if Barack Obama couldn't get elected telling the truth and speaking his mind and moving beyond convention, then we don't need to be in the White House. We've talked about this as Americans, that fear has driven much of the conversation around politics as we really talk through how we want our next president to be. Fear cannot be at the basis of how we're led in this country. We are in this war because for 8 years we were told to be afraid. And everybody followed suit. Everybody cut and run because it was very unpopular not to be afraid, to talk about hope and possibility. But you know what? There is my husband. He called this war to a T. He said, this is wrong. This will cost us millions. We are going after the wrong enemy, he said. And it was unpopular. But he was right, because he's special. He's lived a broad life. And the thing that I want you all to remember, please, please don't base your votes this time on fear. Base it on possibility.
It's been my experience that you can't walk away from one of these events and not feel hope and not feel that glimmer of light again. And our country is starving for that. I know I am. I was a 7th grade teacher. I'm a geography teacher. I had my son and now I'm home with him. And now it's always a full-time job to be a mom, but now with the diagnosis of autism for him, it's
very good.
Even more so.
How are you handling getting services?
He's 2.5, so he falls under the state right now.
Okay.
There just aren't enough people, there's not enough funding, it's really expensive. You get money from the state, but that doesn't even cover the amount.
Being a parent's a challenge already.
No matter
what.
If your child isn't healthy as a mother, it is hard to breathe. That's why these issues are women's issues. And Barack doesn't separate these issues as he talks about the campaign.
Healthcare for women means that we need to have access to all of the screening procedures. Barack Obama has been in favor of all of those. So he hasn't just been a follower on issues relating to healthcare and to women and to families, but he has been out there as an initiator, crafting legislation, getting bipartisan support for that legislation, talking about it very comfortably, and pushing it forward.
What you have to have is a president who says to the American people, our goal is to have universal coverage by the end of the first year. Okay? So then, what I think is very important to do is to call everybody together, not just the Democrats, but the Republicans too. And the president says to the American people, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to log them all in a room, and we're going to keep on working until we can come up with something.
I mean, it's a little hard to talk about. You know, it happened in July. My mother passed away in July. I saw the medical system, you know, firsthand, and it was just, you know, horrible. Mom was 38. From the moment she got to the hospital, they just gave up hope. They looked and saw she had cancer in the past, and they just gave up hope on her.
Did your mother pass?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry to hear that. What happened?
She had breast cancer, and it spread.
How old was she?
38.
Oh, yeah. Did she have decent coverage?
She had Medi-Cal. It's like the California for welfare people. And in her last week, really, she was stable enough to transfer out of the hospital. So I was calling all the doctors, calling them, trying to get someone to authorize a transfer. And nobody would authorize the transfer because she had Medi-Cal.
No, that's a heavy dose.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
As some of you are aware, my mother died of ovarian cancer in the prime of her life. She was 53 years old. And I remember listening to her worry about medical bills instead of thinking about getting well or coming to terms with her possible death. It broke my heart. And I know what it's like to see a loved one suffer because of a broken healthcare system. And I know it's wrong.
The first time I met Barack's family, I met the women in his family. His mother was a very young, very single parent who struggled to take care of him, to raise him across continents. Even though she had had a child at an early age, she was very determined to pursue her PhD in women's development issues. Who she became was not a given. She grew up in a very working class family in Kansas, and she had always had a dream of living in other countries, studying other cultures. I only knew her for a short period of time before she passed, but I think she's probably one of the most compassionate individuals that I've met. And I think she was one of those people that helped to teach him empathy. He also is surrounded by sisters, strong sisters. His youngest sister, Maya, who is a school teacher, has seen her struggle. She worked in New York but found that she couldn't sustain a life on a teacher's salary. His Kenyan sister, Alma, is another single parent who is divorced and is trying to raise a child on a salary that is insufficient. So these stories, these women, have shaped Barack in a very fundamental way, and quite frankly, I think they prepared him to be able to be the kind of husband that I need him to be. Someone who is not intimidated by a strong woman, someone who has her own career, has her own opinions. I have never found that Barack could not handle who I am, and that was the thing that impressed me about him as well. This was a man who was comfortable with strong women in his life.
Where's my wife? Ken, you got my wife, Ken?
I suspect that having a wife like Michelle Obama, who is very, very strong woman and very strong on an agenda that favors women and children, that he probably got some good advice from her as well.
For me, it seems as if we've gotten good as women, and a lot of our leaders have become good at playing the game as it's currently laid out. And the truth of the matter is that the game is broken, and we need to break out of the game. I want a leader who's going to redefine the game, who's going to say the way that we've structured work, the way we accommodate women and families, the way that we value families in our society is all off kilter. That's part of what people see in my passion out there. I mean, it's almost like I want to just shake people and say, wake up. We know what problems we need to fix. We know it in our hearts. And I try to speak to women. I try to tap into their hearts because I know what they're struggling with. It is fear. It is the fear that we may not be able to do this.
Something's got to give. Either your job is going to give or your family's going to give. And I think at some point you have to decide when and how you're going to, balance that. Okay, we'll just let this sit for a minute, okay? And I also think that women have a guilt gene that men don't have. We're the ones that kind of handle the school and the days off and the doctor's appointments and just kind of all the stuff, even if you have a partner that's very, equal. It's just kind of part of who we are. And then you throw that into the working world.
So I'm the chief operating officer of the campaign, and which means that I run my department runs the day-to-day operations of the campaign. And what I love about Barack is that, he's of the age, this generation where, those of us working on women's issues in the campaign don't have to say, oh, Barack, don't forget to mention women in your speech. Don't forget to hire women. It's a natural part of his being. It's just he doesn't think any other way.
We also need to change a system that is stacked against women. 40% of working women do not have a single paid sick day.
More and more women are denied jobs or promotions because they've got children at home. We will require employers to provide 7 paid sick days each year. We'll enforce laws that prohibit caregiver discrimination. And we'll encourage flexible work schedules to better balance work and parenting for mothers and fathers. That's a change that working families need all across America.
Those of us that have families and children know that you can't do it on your own anymore. And what we know from women in poverty is that many of those women don't have the support system. And that's why it's so important that government does provide a helping hand for women that are struggling. And Barack and Michelle believe that, to their core. It's not something they're saying because they think it's politically expedient. It's that that's who they really are.
We know that the cost of the American dream must never come at the expense of the American family. That's why I will double spending on quality after-school programs so that you can know that your children are safe and secure. And that's why I'll expand the Family Medical Leave Act to include more businesses and millions more workers, to let parents participate in school activities with their kids, and to cover elderly care. And we'll finally put federal support behind state efforts to provide paid medical and family leave. This is something I understand from growing up with a single mom. This is something I understand as a consequence of being in a household where my wife worked.
What we are telling our women and our girls right now is to dream big, but after that you're on your own. You have to figure out how you're gonna, take care of your family if you don't have a job that pays a living wage. You have to figure out how to educate your children without access to solid public schools. This isn't, the world that we want to raise our girls in. We want them to think about being CEOs and surgeons or basketball stars, but we also know that in this society, if they don't have the support of our government, if they don't have support of the entire community, at some point they will struggle. At some point they will hit the ceiling that is still there for women and girls. And we both want to make sure that we are building a society where our girls and the girls across this nation can be whoever they want to be truly and not struggle to make it happen.
Now, I'm not just asking you to trust in my abilities to change this country. I'm asking you to trust in yourselves. I'm asking you to bet on us, on our capacity to do what previous generations have done, to lift our sights, to join together and forge a better future for our children and our grandchildren. And if you're willing to work for it and fight for it and bring others to this cause, if after this rally you decide, I'm going to go sign up another 20 more women, or volunteer to knock on doors or serve as a precinct captain, get on your email list, then I believe that this time will be finally different from all the rest. And especially women. Women have always made the difference in every election. And this year, your voice, your vote will be the deciding factor in forging a new future.
But what I tell people is that we now have in Barack the kind of candidate that we've said we wanted. Someone with integrity, with dignity, with common sense, who is non-ideological, someone who respects and values family, and someone who is completely ready for this job. But we as women have to be ready to embrace that as well.
You all will make a great first family, and I'm looking forward to that.
We have to be ready to step outside of our fear and our comfort zone and embrace this possibility. And I think that we're ready.
Oh, I see. Hey, this is our video guys. Wave, everybody. Hey! There you go.